Hi, I'm Conor Battigan from Sandyford Business District, and I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to everybody joining us this morning. We've got a great lineup of speakers this morning. And first up we have Jamie Cudden, who's the Smart City Programme Manager with Dublin City Council. Jamie, as a leader of Dublin City Council's Smart City Programme, Jamie established the Smart Dublin Regional Initiative in 2015, successfully implementing large-scale challenge-based innovation programme, working with over 40 companies, tackling areas such as last-mile delivery, smart mobility hubs, and flood monitoring. He represents Dublin on Smart City Alliances, including the Harvard TECH Innovators Forum, Wireless Broadband Alliance, Cities Today Institute, and Mastercard's City Possible Initiative. Jamie Cudden, you're very welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Conor. That's great. There's a pretty cool stage there. Really impressive setup for this week, and exciting to hear the range of events that you have planned. So I'm going to really talk a little bit about some of the work that we're doing in Dublin City Council on the Smart City programme. You know, what I'm seeing in the latest trends in smart cities and smart mobility. Going to touch on the COVID-19 crisis and some of the data we're seeing emerging from the smart city sensors and applications around the city, and maybe food for thought in terms of what's coming down the line in some of these innovations. And you know, as I'm speaking here, you can see the backdrop of a drone flying over the River Liffey. And when I started in my role about 5-6 years ago, we used to look at like maybe what the potential of drones were into the future. And if you fast forward 5 years, we have about 6 different teams in Dublin City Council using drones, from everything from surveying and mapping to first responder for the fire brigade to monitoring waste management and enforcement to environmental monitoring. So it's amazing to see how fast these technologies are growing, and the future for drones in terms of delivery, logistics, maybe even taxis, you never know, is going to move faster than we ever can imagine. So all this is creating new opportunities to solve challenges in our city. So I lead a large-scale innovation program in Dublin City Council, and really, if you think about the smart city concept, a lot of people ask me, what's this thing all about? Like, I mean, where can we see it? Is it real? And of course, like 5-6 years ago, was a lot of hype around the smart city concept. It was like big tech talking about how they could apply their solutions at scale. And it's been a bit slow to take off. But what we've seen in the last couple of years with this concept of Internet of Things, where we connect sensors and move towards a real-time connected data-driven city, we're starting to see a whole load of applications emerge across our cities. Everything from sensors that tell you when the bin is full to river level monitors, like looking at the real-time level of a river, rainfall intensity sensors in cities. You're looking at the weather at the moment, like a storm warning. You know, how can we use this data to make better decisions, deliver better services for outcomes and services for our citizens, is really what it's all about. So this graphic really just shows that the smart city is very much real. It's really starting to take off, and I can tell you with COVID and the whole implication of that, we're going to see a massive investment in actually this type of technology to get a better understanding of what's happening across our cities. So Smart Dublin, as Conor, you mentioned, we launched it about 2015, and it's very much a regional approach. And Smart Sandiford is a real flagship of the Smart Dublin program. But one of the real successes, if you look at the chart here, is that this idea of creating districts that are forward thinking and you can accelerate innovation and making it real There's no point in me talking about technologies that exist everywhere else in the world, or in China or Singapore. We want to bring the innovation to Dublin, create new opportunities, and work with the leading tech companies, innovators, startups that are on our doorstep. So very much this district approach is differentiating Dublin as a global leader in the smart city space, and it's really important to flag that it's not about the technology. It's about actually the technology enabling us to solve challenges in our cities, from climate action to flooding, to how we manage waste, to how we manage, or promote sustainable mobility. These are really important topics, and working with communities and business, and working with I suppose the ecosystem is so important for us, and really success for Smart Dublin and smart city programs around the world is built on collaboration. And it's really about, from a Dublin perspective, we in the city or in the local authorities know what the big challenges are, but sometimes we just need a bit of help, what the technology opportunity is. We've got world leading tech on our doorstep. We have world leading research centres. We've got amazing startups. And it's really how we knit that together to create a collaboration model, to create new opportunities. And if you think about it, like if we can solve some of these big city challenges on our doorstep, it creates opportunities for companies and startups to actually create a scalable solution that can be applied to cities around the world. So the economic opportunity is massive, as well as solving some of these issues in our cities. And I think this idea of making it real is my mantra over the years. There's no point talking about it and developing long-winded strategies in terms of what we're going to do in 10 years. People need to see it now. And some of the initiatives that we've brought to Dublin over the last couple of years is, what's the future of mobility look like? We piloted a driverless shuttle for a couple of days. How would this work in a business district like Sandiford? Let's bring the technology closer and to the people to kind of understand the benefits. Let's talk about the regulation that's needed to make this happen faster, and the economic opportunity. And you can see some of the types of projects that we've deployed across Dublin to get that spark that innovation to make it happen faster. And I think I love this example. Thinking about how a bit of technology aligned with some sort of traditional physical asset, in this case a scooter or a bike, so a bit of connectivity, a bit of GPS, and all of a sudden we create a new service opportunity. And the big buzz in e-scooters, but look what's happened. Some entrepreneurs, innovators in the US have kind of fused this together and created opportunities that have created billion-dollar companies in the space of months and years. And it just shows you, like, there's a huge opportunity to create new services that we never thought of before that can really make a difference in our cities. Now, there's all sorts of challenges with these type of new solutions, but I think it's important to realize the opportunity. And I think what we're seeing is this adoption of technology. It's just moving so fast. Just think about the proliferation of e-scooters. Think about apps like TikTok. Think about all these new technologies. Think of like digital banking. It's just moving faster than we can ever imagine. And this curve of adoption is creating opportunities, but challenges for cities and governments and regulators that we also need to be conscious of. And I do think COVID-19, it wasn't like acceleration wasn't happening fast, but I think from a consumer perspective and a private sector perspective, acceleration was moving quite at pace. But for cities, in terms of public sector and local authorities, this COVID-19 pandemic has just transformed us in a way we could never have imagined. Moving to remote working, adopting more digital services, even doing everything through Teams or Zoom. It's just changed the whole way we work, and I think there's no going back in terms of this transformation. And I guess it's up to governments and cities to figure out how we can make sure that it's positioning ourselves in a really opportunistic way in the midst of a crisis. And some of the discussions we're having with cities around the world is the way we manage cities. Everything we know about cities, the data we have on cities, the historical patterns, the trends, you may as well rip it up. It's all changed dramatically. Working from home, what's the new norm? How will city centres be reimagined? What will the future business districts look like? And from a smart city perspective and this opportunity of Internet of Things, data is absolutely going to be at the heart of this. But also, from a mobility perspective, we're seeing radical shifts in terms of mobility patterns and trends. And I think, also the impact this is having on our economy is quite dramatic. The future is very uncertain. So how are we going to innovate out of this crisis and also make sure we're making the right decisions for the future? I think is going to be really, really important. And, it's a depressing picture, Temple Bar, at the moment in the midst of this crisis, and the damage that this is doing to our economy is quite worrying. And as we kind of step into a new, lockdown for the next couple of weeks. And I think it's interesting to start looking at big data and what types of data do we have to better understand the impact. And this is some interesting data from Google. A lot of us have Google Android phones, and there's a huge, really interesting, data coming out of these corporations that they can use for public good. And you can see at the start of the pandemic, the red line there is looking at grocery and pharmacy shopping when everyone went out looking for stocking up on toiletries and toilet roll. But you can also see the impact, we've had on retail and also, the workplace in terms of a massive reduction in terms of how we work and the whole working from home trend as well. So I looked at actually some of the latest data from last week, actually from Google, and you can start to understand, what impact COVID's having from a data perspective on our cities. And again, you can see, the impact on public transit, the impact, actually, we're seeing a massive resurgence in terms of how people use green space and parks in our cities. And I just looked at some of the data on, the main retail areas in Dublin where, Grafton Street hit really hard, the kind of south side of the city where we've seen traditionally very dependent on tourism and business, whereas Henry Street, the north side, picked up significantly in the last couple of weeks. Now, obviously, that's going to change. But I think it's interesting to start looking at data and using the data then to, change the narrative in terms of how we respond to the crisis. You're looking at the traffic volumes in the city. You can see they started to dip down to about half of what we would normally have expected at this time of year. So these type of trends are really interesting and useful to understand and shape policy, economic policy within our city. And I guess the response we're seeing, and you're seeing it across cities around the world, is how do we change the way we prioritize maybe pedestrians and cyclists as part of a temporary COVID response and you're seeing it particularly in Dún Laoghaire as well, with significant investment in walking, in cycling infrastructure as a result of the pandemic. But I think a really important thing is as we make these changes, there are temporary. We need to make sure we're setting up the right infrastructure, data infrastructure, to actually justify the continued investment in these kind of mobility solutions. And I think that's where the smart city is really starting to come to the fore. And I'm just looking at some of the latest cycling data, and what we're seeing is these shifts in patterns, away from the commuter cycling to the more leisure cycling, suburban cycling, and you can see some big peaks there in the off-peak cycling trends across Dublin city, and that's kind of reinforced in terms of a big data set that we have access to from Strava. Strava, if you're running or you're cycling, you might have it on your phone, and you can see that surge in the blue line in terms of the number of cyclists. We're seeing maybe less trips, but more people cycling, and I guess we kind of need to make sure we realize this is as a long-term trend. So we want to make this sticky, that it's not something that we just see during the pandemic. And one of the exciting initiatives that we've launched in Dublin City Council, but this is available for any of the local authorities, is a kind of an app where we can engage with people who want to get into cycling or people who are new to cycling. So the Strava is the more kind of hardcore cyclists. This is for the, getting people into cycling and helping them, track your routes, understand the safest routes to get around the city, where we're investing in the new infrastructure. But also, showing and communicating with the cycling community where the new infrastructure is going in, encouraging them to try it out and give us feedback, and also gamifying in terms of, you can cycle every day. If you can do different challenges where we kind of encourage people to cycle in different areas of the city, you can get rewards. And this is a whole kind of interesting way in terms of how we use the technology to change behaviour. And this is something hopefully that we'll see grow as something that lots of people in Dublin will use. I think in the space of a couple of weeks, we have nearly 1,000 users of this app. So it just shows you how quick we can adopt some of these technologies. And on top of that, there's this idea, and I talked about the big data, but we have a great relationship with Google, one of the biggest employers in the city. And one of the things we're trying to look at is how this then can relate to improvements in maybe reduced emissions, in terms of how does it address our climate action plans. And we can start using big data sets like Google to understand what's happening in our city at a macro level, and actually understanding, like, okay, are we increasing the amount of people cycling in the city? And if we increase it more, how will this, I suppose, impact our climate action targets? And this is really interesting in terms of how you can start modeling. So I'm going to show a little video which kind of inspires me in terms of the potential of these type of partnerships, and how we can collaborate to address things like climate action and use data to inform policy.
But without good data, even the most impactful ideas can't take hold. Google's Environmental Insights Explorer is an online tool built to empower cities with data to take informed action, making it easier for cities to measure, plan, and reduce the world's carbon emissions. Dublin City Council used Environmental Insights Explorer to implement smart transport policies to improve cycling infrastructure and track their efforts for sustainable modes of transport. Environmental Insights Explorer showed Mexico City its building emissions and the potential to generate over 4 megawatts of renewable energy from rooftop solar. And in Melbourne, Australia, it highlighted the solar potential to power the entire city. Google's Environmental Insights Explorer, helping create a healthier, cleaner future for citizens around the world.
So I think you can see the power of big data, but these partnerships can really help cities in terms of developing better policies and having a better view of what's happening in their city. And I think, another thing just to maybe flag is that there's a lot of, new infrastructure going in around cities to help us get this better insight, this better data to inform policy. One of the other projects, when I talked about autonomous vehicles earlier, but some of the technology that's coming out of autonomous vehicles like radar and LiDAR based technologies are being now deployed because it's driven down the cost of these sensors. And we're deploying these radar sensors across the city to actually develop better insights in terms of cars and bicycles approaching junctions in the city. And then using this data, then you can change the light sequence to give cyclists better priority at the junction, which creates safer cycling outcomes for cyclists in our city. So a lot of this is kind of starting to emerge, starting to scale. And this is another project that we have in the city, which is looking at how can we use camera-based technology in a privacy by design approach using edge computing that can help us better monitor, traffic flows, classification, and who knows, could it potentially, help us address some of these type of blockages, where people are, parking in bus lanes and cycle lanes. And, really what I learned a lot about, smart city programs and new technology, sometimes it's not so much about the technology, but it's about the regulation, it's about the policy, it's about who pays for the technology, where does the money go for the fines. And I think we need to tease out a lot of these issues really to realize the large-scale benefits of investing in the new type of technology. So, and this is an example in Amsterdam where they have a scan card that can reach an average of 1,000 license plates per hour. So, there is a way to deploy these type of solutions. And I think maybe from a Dublin perspective, we probably need to be more proactive in terms of challenging ourselves, thinking about how do we really solve some of the big challenges in a way that can make a big difference for our city. So I'm going to just finish off just talking about maybe some of the innovation programs that we run. We love the idea of working with startups or smaller innovators that can help them create new job opportunities. And over the last couple of years, with partnership with Enterprise Ireland, we've put out a whole series of innovation challenges to the market and have worked hand in hand with smaller companies to deploy solutions in the city to test new concepts. And some of these are in areas like how do we scale up cycling in the city, where we have a challenge fund. We're looking at a problem. We don't specify a technology, and who knows what kind of solution we could find. And in this case, we ended up working with a Northern Irish-based company testing a smart bike light that has artificial intelligence, machine learning built in that can help us generate better data in the city in terms of where people are braking and swerving. We had nearly 2,000 cyclists trial these lights for us. We can get insights in terms of where this road surface is rough and where it needs to be improved as a priority. And also we worked with companies like AECOM to validate that this data actually can replace manual surveys in our city. So huge possibilities. And we have a whole series of these type of challenges. Again, logistics, hot topic with COVID, massive increase in logistics, maybe not so much in the city centre, but we've always had a challenge. How do we get that balance right between deliveries and white vans and that battle for curbside in cities? So we've got run a whole innovation program thinking about how do we look at the future in this space. And, the future is actually digitizing our curbside. It's actually creating, new apps and ways for delivery drivers to deliver and optimize and book times in a dynamic way in our cities. And this is a big deal. How can you make it easier to, reduce the amount of congestion in our cities by optimizing how they can access space on the curbside? And really, it's a real emerging, I suppose, opportunity happening that we see in cities around the world, particularly in the US now. Look at how they manage Ubers and taxis and deliveries for this, I suppose, prime space in their cities. And I think we've been testing some of these technologies, just some examples here. But this, how you digitize the curbside is actually a game changer. What are the rules? How do they change between 10 and 12? Or is it a bus lane at certain times? Do you want logistics to change depending on what's happening in the area? And I think by doing that, then very simple example is, where you have a bus lane that's not a bus lane and you have a parking app. How can the data from the curbside communicate to the parking app, or your car that can communicate to digital curbside? How does it know when you can't use that space, and then you don't get a ticket when you didn't want it? So yeah, I'm going to just maybe fly through this because we're running out of time. But there's a whole wave of innovation happening in logistics, sustainable logistics, that we're trying to kind of empower the city, the different departments, and give opportunities to business to work with us to test some of these solutions. And I know Connor's probably going to talk about some of the stuff happening in Smart Sandiford on smart mobility. How do we look at the opportunity of mobility as a service, with all the different, I suppose, bikes and cars, and how do we fuse that together to make it easier to get around? A lot of this work we're doing through Smart Dublin with different partners like Mastercard, City Possible, and I think it just brings us to the point in terms of the technology offers a great opportunity. COVID has accelerated the need for us to invest, to have the better data. There's a lot of disruption happening. There's a need to really think about what we want to get out of the technology. How do we shape the future in a way that is not driven by an Uber or someone else, but it's actually driven by the needs of citizens, communities, and cities, and businesses and local authorities. And I think it's clear that it's moving so fast. We need to sometimes step back and think about what we really want to get out of it. There's ethics, there's privacy issues, and it's actually just doing the right thing as well. So that's not probably the type of signage we want to see in our cities in the future, and that's definitely not the type of solution we want to see driving future applications. But I think what I've kind of highlighted really is there's massive change happening in the last 5 years. There's a huge opportunity, particularly in districts like Sandiford, to embrace it, to offer value and opportunities for companies, but deliver brilliant outcomes for businesses, for citizens, and deliver great services. And I'm very excited to be part of this discussion today, and wish you all the best for the rest of your week, Conor, and the Sandyford Business District crew.
Smart City Programme Manager, thank you very much. Jamie, one of the common themes that we're hearing, it came up yesterday with Tara Buckley, Director General RG Data. You mentioned it again today. It's collaboration. And collaboration is key, to get buy-in from as many stakeholders as possible, and the relevant stakeholders. And without collaboration or buy-in, it's unlikely that project or concept will get off the ground.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's why these, I suppose, these smart districts are so important, because you really, business, you want to find out what the needs are from business, from community groups, but you guys have, some of the smartest, brightest kind of, technology companies, the different ideas that are being developed in the district. And then from a city perspective, sometimes we don't have the expertise in the big data, in the analytics, in, what the new technology trends are. So, but we know what all the problems are. So if you can fuse that and actually create an opportunity to actually do something that makes a difference and make it real. I always kind of like to say that, making it real, because you can talk a lot about this, Conor, but that until someone sees it physically and actually sees what it could do, that's where you start getting the scale opportunity. And I think it's just people being progressive and actually being open to collaboration, because if we just continue to work on our silos, it's definitely not going to be a future that's going to be one that puts Dublin in a good position from a competitiveness perspective.
I completely agree, Jamie. Thanks for your contribution this morning. I know you're going to stay around. We'll have a Q&A at the end of this session. So thank you, Jamie Cudden, Smart City Programme Manager. Just before we move on to our next speaker, just to mention that LIFT, Leading Ireland's Future Together, they're holding online leadership sessions specifically around innovation and adaptability. Just so log on to liftireland.ie for further information. I'm delighted and excited to welcome Sarah Cunningham, Vice President at Mastercard Dublin Techhub. Sarah's obviously as Vice President of Mastercard Dublin's Technology Hub. Sarah Cunningham is focused on optimising the strategy for the company's only Europe-based technology hub, which has over 700 employees, primarily technologists, dedicated to global projects shaping the future of payments. Sarah is a passionate diversity, inclusion and advocate, and has over 20 years experience across strategy, marketing, innovation at Google, Barclays, BT Retail UK, CapGemini and Accenture. Sarah, you're very welcome this morning. You come with a lot of experience and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Sarah, I just think you're on mute. If you can just check.
My apologies, what a start. Innovation Forum and I forget to unmute. So listen, thank you very much and apologies for the length of my bio. This is a really, really impressive event. So I feel honoured to be here and to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about our European Tech Hub. So I don't know if you can see my slides, if the slides are up or not, but brilliant. Okay, so I'll start away. So yeah, as you said, I lead Mastercard's European Technology Hub. We're so proud that Dublin and specifically Sandiford is home to Mastercard's only Europe-based technology hub. As you mentioned, we have over 700 employees and we're growing rapidly. You might actually have seen us in the news earlier this year. We made an announcement that over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be hiring another 1,500 roles here in Dublin. And indeed, we'll be creating a purpose-built campus in Sandyford's South County. So I was asked today to say a few words, to give you a little bit of insight into what it is that my colleagues are doing in our European Tech Hub, and also to share some of our plans for our new South County campus. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about Mastercard. Now, you may already know that we are a leader in global payments and a cutting-edge technology company. We operate the world's fastest payments processing network, connecting consumers, merchants, businesses, and governments right across the world. We were founded over 50 years ago, but our company today has really evolved and changed a huge amount, as you might imagine. Today, our network processes over 90 billion transactions per year. But to be honest, you probably knew a lot of that because many of you probably already have a Mastercard in your wallet. But what you might not know is that the Mastercard of today has evolved exponentially. So our remit goes far beyond payments technology today. We have leveraged our expertise in designing payment ecosystems and networks. In some ways, we call ourselves the original network business. And we've leveraged that experience to look at new technologies, artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality, distributed ledger technologies, payment security, cyber security, and so much more, to build solutions for a range of end users, fintechs, retailers, manufacturers, distributors, small businesses, gig workers, consumers, you name it. Today, our technology goes far beyond the financial transaction to conceivably any interaction between consumers, businesses, and governments. Today, we are truly a technology company building the future of commerce. And I'm so proud that Dublin, and again, Sandiford, is playing such a strategically important role in Mastercard's global Techhub strategy and indeed in shaping the future of commerce. The environment that we've created in our Dublin Techhub is a vibrant, multicultural environment. So we attract passionate technologists from all corners of the planet. And it's their deep expertise in a range of technologies, open APIs, cybersecurity, payment security, a wide range of emerging technologies that is enabling us to play such a key role in Mastercard's global strategy. Indeed, we are home to the Mastercard Labs headquarters. Mastercard Labs is our global R&D hub, looking at the future of commerce from a fresh perspective. So it's not just lip service when we say that innovation truly is in our DNA. But I thought the best way to bring that to life to you was to show you a couple of examples of the types of products and innovations that my colleagues back at Base are working on. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to share just two examples, but obviously we are working on a wide range of innovations. So I'm going to start with a fraud detection state-of-the-art technology, which is our decision management platform. This platform analyzes 65,000 transactions per second. That's on par with Google searches and about twice the number of tweets per second. It leverages 13 AI technologies and 1,000 machine learning variables. It runs multiple models on each transaction, and it does that within 50 milliseconds and to a 99.99999% availability. That's 5 nines if you were counting. So we're pretty proud of this technology. It really is state of the art in terms of accurate fraud detection and also decreasing false positives. But it's not just us that think this is a great technology. We were really honoured to be named amongst Forbes CIO Innovation Award winners recently for this platform. And that's something that, it's great that our colleagues back in our Dublin Tech Hub get to see that reward for the hard work they've put in. They're working with some of our colleagues and some of our other tech hubs as well on this one. And we've in recent years and in recent months even, we definitely need a bigger trophy cabinet, because we are, my colleagues' incredible work is sort of gathering awards for these type of innovations. For instance, the AI awards recently. So that's one example of a product. I'm going to give you another example of quite a different product that we're really proud was conceived and built right here in Dublin. And that is our provenance solution leveraging our proprietary blockchain. So we're incredibly proud that Mastercard's distributed ledger was built right here in Dublin. And one of the use cases we're leveraging that for is that of identifying the provenance of goods and services. So counterfeiting is becoming a much bigger issue these days. According to one report, the counterfeiting industry, if that's a word, will be worth $1.82 trillion this year. So it's no wonder that consumers care so much more about making sure that their products are authentic, are sustainable, and are safe. But that's pretty difficult because, as you know, supply chains are complex. And that's where our provenance solution comes in. We're able to attach a digital identity to a product or service. And leveraging our distributed ledger, we are able to trace that product from its origin through to its sale point with irrefutable traceability. So we've partnered with Envision for one particular use case, which is in the food sector. It's that of fish. So we're able to, using our technology, trace salmon from being caught in the seas in Alaska to ending up on a supermarket shelf. For consumers, they're able to scan the packaging, a QR code on the packaging, and they're able to see that salmon's journey, I suppose, from the sea to the package they're holding. But of course, there is applicability for so many different industries here. Food, agriculture, luxury goods, cosmetics, healthcare, you name it. In fact, when we think about the current situation we're living in, back in spring, the US Customs seized about 10 million fraudulent masks. Again, you can see the value of a provenance technology solution in this environment. So again, those are just two examples of innovations being built and developed in our Dublin Tech Hub. There are many more. We will be opening the doors to our new campus in the late spring, and we will have a state-of-the-art innovation showcase there. And if anybody is interested in coming and visiting, obviously government guidelines permitting, we'd be delighted to show you a few more of our innovations. But I was asked today to speak a little bit about why Mastercard selected Ireland to be our European technology hub, and indeed why Sandiford. So starting first with why Ireland. When I think about the tech sector in Ireland, I think about the words of our Taoiseach, who's obviously also Minister for Trade, Enterprise and Employment. I think I've got that in the right order, and that's Leo Varadkar. Mr. Varadkar has been quoted many times as saying that Ireland is well on the way to becoming the tech capital of Europe, with Dublin at its core. And I think you only need to look around events like this to see that really is true. We have an incredible tech ecosystem here. According to the IDA, we have over 1,200 of the large technology companies here. We also have an absolutely thriving and very exciting technology startup ecosystem here as well. And of course, all of this has led to really strong credentials. We are, as a nation, as a country, becoming a centre of excellence for cybersecurity, for instance. And of course, given the industry we're in, we're very involved in that community. The IDA has sort of branded us, Ireland, the AI island, and that's very true. We have incredible credentials, and there's some really interesting things happening in the AI world, both with some of the large technology, the companies that are based here, but also some really exciting startups. And indeed, we've built a really strong reputation for software engineering in general. And what all of that has led to is a really excellent talent pool. And I really mean it when I say I am constantly overwhelmed by the level of talent, by the strength of talent that we have in our Dublin Tech Hub. And it's not just me. When we go back just over a decade ago, Mastercard only had about 36 people in Dublin. I joined in 2013 and we had about 140 people. And as we mentioned, we're well over 700 now and hiring another 1,500 over the next 3 to 5 years. What happened in that time? There were strategic changes, but Ireland was chosen for a large degree because of the strength of our talent. Our execs, when they bought programs here, started to see how passionate our community here is for learning, for taking on new challenges, how productive the quality of output, and indeed the wonderful community spirit and culture and diversity that we've built up. We actually have 48 nationalities at last count. It's probably more than that now, to be honest. And that's not unique to Mastercard's Dublin Tech Hub. Many technology companies in Dublin have that same diversity. Of course, diversity is crucial for innovation. And part of the reason for that is our unique geographic position. You know, at the heart of Europe, and let's be honest, now Ireland is the only English-speaking country, or our first language is English, arguably, if you're in the Gaeltacht, but English-speaking country in the EU. So that is why we're attracting talent from right across the globe. So it really is clear that Ireland is a great location for high quality and high value talent. But when you factor into that, you know, the comparison in terms of costs with, you know, some of the other major tech company capitals like New York, we really are a medium cost center for high value talent. And you factor in as well many of the government support structures and incentives, and it becomes a very enticing proposition indeed. So that's why I suppose we're in Ireland. But what about Sandiford? Why did we specifically choose Sandiford? Well, look, first of all, we were here. We have been in Sandiford for the past number of years, as many of you know, based out of the Mountain View building in Central Park. But when we made the decision to expand by 1,500 people and to create our own purpose-built campus, we looked at offices across different areas in Dublin. And we really went back to basics, and we made a thoughtful decision as to where we wanted our campus to be. And we selected Sandiford. There are a number of reasons for that. First of all, Sandiford is a super location when it comes to talent acquisition and talent retention. And that's because it is so accessible. Today, we have employees living in many different suburbs of Dublin, in Kildare, in Wicklow, and further afield. We all know that the cost of housing in city centre is pretty high. So most people don't live or rent in the city centre. Most people live outside of that. And our location is really accessible. Our employees tell us that our location helps them with their work-life balance. Maybe they might drop their kids off en route to work and pick them up en route back. It works for them. And that creates a stickiness, because we don't want employees who are coming to us for 1 or 2 years. We want employees who are going to be able to build long careers, who are going to be able to move into different roles themselves and grow their own expertise as they stay with us and add value over the long term. And of course, we also selected Sandiford because it is part of a thriving tech ecosystem. The very fact that the Sandiford Business District is so successful, and even this innovation forum in its own right, shows you how thriving this tech ecosystem is. And many of the companies who are based here, and indeed who are tuning in, are companies who we would partner with on various technology initiatives. Indeed, I'd highlight our next door neighbour, Microsoft. Earlier this year, we did announce a global partnership with Microsoft. So we're in good company. The third thing, and I think this is really important, we didn't just want an office. We wanted to create a purpose-built campus that meets the holistic needs of our employees. And South County offered us that opportunity, and that's a very different offering. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the times we're in, because I firmly believe that in the future of work, once our world navigates beyond this pandemic, the office still has a really important role to play. When I think back to March, and even, let's be honest, to tomorrow, when the next lockdown is coming, everybody, apart from critical workers, all technology sector workers, were mandated to work from home. Choice was taken off the table. Flexibility was taken off the table. Now, some people found that suited them. Maybe they were lucky enough to have a home office, to have peace and quiet, so they can work in a focused manner. And maybe they felt that they were saving time on their commute. But for everybody who celebrated the mandate to work from home, many more lamented it. The learning is that we are all different and we have all got different circumstances. People living by themselves felt isolated and they felt they needed that office environment for collaboration and human connection. People living in bustling flat shares felt the opposite. They had no space and maybe they were working around a kitchen table together. And again, they felt they needed that safe environment to work from. There are many reasons and you all know those reasons. So I believe the future of work, the foundation of the future of work will be choice, will be flexibility. Technology will be the enabler, but the office will still have a pivotal role to play. The office of the future will be an uplifting, inspiring, and positive destination that nurtures continuous learning, collaboration, innovation, co-creation, wellness initiatives, and also nurtures community and culture. As we plan the fit out of our new campus, the first building is due to open its doors late spring. We are thoughtfully planning every element, and we are taking on board the learnings of the times that we are living through. So we're planning everything from what materials we're using in the fit out to smart uses of technology to create contactless experiences. For our meeting rooms and our collaboration areas, we're making technology work harder to build the bridge between the physical and the virtual world, such that you can have that immersive experience and such that it can be an equitable experience. Indeed, that's a design imperative. In planning for our new One South County and indeed Two South County campus, we are building a safe, inclusive, and equitable design for all of our employees. And I think that's really important. So I hope that's given you a bit of a whistle-stop overview of what it is, what the nature of work that we do in our European Tech Hub right here in Dublin is. And also I hope it's given you some sort of a sense of our plans for our new campus in South County, which is really exciting. As I say, assuming construction stays on track, we are planning to open our doors in late spring. And if any of you would like to come and look at our state-of-the-art innovation showcase, which will be within that building, do please get in touch a little bit nearer the time, and we'd be very delighted to welcome you. And thank you again for the honour of asking us to talk at this event.
Sarah Cunningham, Vice President at Mastercard Dublin Tech Hub. Thank you very much. You'll be delighted to hear I'm one of those people that has a Mastercard, and the building One South County, I'm one of the lucky few that have been in it, and it is an extraordinary building. It's I wouldn't describe it as your typical office. I know it's nowhere near fit out, but I'm looking forward to hopefully getting an invite, hint, when it's ready. I also wouldn't mind working for Microsoft either. It sounds like a great place to work. You mentioned provenance, and that technology. It's worth pointing out, I suppose. I've come across that term before, but in relation to paintings and antiques, it's been around for years. But what you've done is you've brought it, you turned it into technology. where now people can, I suppose, you gave the salmon example, you know, tracking from, let's say you call it from birth to plate or whatever it may be. It allows people make, I suppose, informed decisions around purchases, which is really important these days.
Absolutely, yeah. It's an incredible technology, and you know, I think the level of innovation that my colleagues back at base have shown really is strong. And as you say, absolutely, those are very valid use cases and important use cases for this technology. You know, the antiques industry, the jewelry industry, the art industry. All of those industries have had challenges in terms of being able to track the provenance of their goods and services. You know, one that's been, I suppose, quite well known is that of diamonds, right? So yes, right now the use for this is on the Alaskan salmon, but there are many use cases for this really fantastic technology.
Well, I mean, you mentioned, I suppose, like the ecosystem around Sandiford, and we do have an absolute embarrassment of talent. You know, when we compare to other areas, you know, within Ireland, like we've UCD, Nova UCD, Smurfit, IADT, all surrounding Sandyford, and it's very important to note, without industry, there's no requirement for this embarrassment of talent, and without the talent, there's no requirement for industry, I suppose. So that, I suppose, that was one of the key reasons, or one of the many reasons why you chose Sandyford, to be able to tap into that resource that's available.
Absolutely, and you know, the Irish education system is truly incredible. You know, I read a stat that where I think it's on the IDA website. I hope I'm not wrong here, but I think it was 6th in the world in terms of our education system. And then going on to 3rd level education, we were the first country to have an industry-driven machine learning PhD. Indeed, we have strong ties with all of the universities here, including sponsoring ML Labs, which is a new machine learning PhD with a number of universities collaborating. And we're so lucky to have access to such strong talent. And it's not just in Ireland. Again, thinking about our unique geographic position here in Ireland, we get access to talent from right across the world because Ireland is an attractive place to live right now. You know, it really is, and for young people. And one of the things that we're probably proudest of is for the past number of years now, 90% of our interns have returned as graduates. And indeed, our latest graduate intake has just arrived back from their final year. It was an unusual final year for them. But I've enjoyed catching up with them and welcoming them back into, I suppose, our Mastercard family back here in Dublin.
Okay. I'm right in saying that Mastercard invented contactless payment. Is that correct?
I will take it. I will double check it, but yes. But look, what I think is really important is that, you know, very early on in the crisis, we did increase the contactless limits. And I think contactless technologies are so important now, you know. My colleague Sonia Gilon has been in the press recently talking about the importance of buying local during this time, and indeed contactless enables that to become a safer experience. So it really is an important technology at these times.
Absolutely, I think we were on that path anyway, but COVID, like many things, it has accelerated what was going to happen in the sort of a longer term future. It's now short term. So cash. You know, it's been discussed before that cash will be a thing of the past, but we're seeing it live. It's happening at the moment. You know, some independent shops, some larger chains have decided they will no longer accept cash, and there's no haggling or debating it when you get into the shop. And one of the benefits is, you know, cash can be dirty. You know, it also, there's a cost to the business as well in terms of, you know, holding that cash and having it, you know, transacted in the bank. So contactless payments are here to stay. What's your vision? Like, when will we see cash disappear altogether? You know, the paper, the coin. When will it leave our pockets?
So, gosh, that's a really good question. I think it's worth noting that on a global basis, right? So, outside of Ireland, and we are a global company, 80% of the world's transactions today are actually still cash. Now, one of the things that we focus on very closely is financial inclusion. So I mentioned that Dublin is the headquarters for Mastercard labs globally. We actually have labs in a number of countries across the globe, including Nairobi. Our lab in Nairobi is focused specifically on solving for financial inclusion. And so solving for the 2 billion people in our world who are still without mainstream financial tools, right? And so that's something we have a number of very interesting and relevant innovations coming out of our lab, focused on financial inclusion. And I think that's really important because, cash has many other issues. And of course, fraud is higher, unfortunately, with cash. So I don't have an answer as to when we'll get that 80% down to 0%, but I do know that we are working very hard on it. And obviously, security is a number one concern for us.
Yeah, we're definitely on our way to a cashless society. Sarah Cunningham, Vice President, Mastercard Dublin Techhub, thank you so much for your contribution. It's great to see Mastercard continue to invest in Ireland and especially in Sandiford Business District. We'll catch up again at some point in the future and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up we have Conor Mark Dowling. Conor is a Programme Manager with Smart Sandiford. He's a postdoc researcher working on smart cities research. As the Smart Programme Manager, Conor's primary focus is on researching alternative sustainable mobility options with the aim of promoting economic growth and improving the quality of life in the district. The Smart Sandiford programme is a partnership between Enable Trinity College Dublin, Dunleary-Down County Council and Smart Sandiford Business District under the Smart Dublin programme. So I'm delighted to welcome Conor Mark Dowling. Just did your introduction on your bio, so take it away.
Great stuff. Thanks, Conor. I was listening yesterday and it's really a pleasure to be part of this event. Really great start yesterday and looking forward to more of the exciting speakers during the week. I suppose further to Jamie's overview of the Smart Dublin talks, I'll be talking today about specifically what the Smart Sandiford district is doing and the work we've been doing over the last year. And I think what Sarah said about the rate of change of technology has led to this Smart Sandiford program. I'm one of those people who actually ditched the wallet and just use my phone now. So it really is a rapid change. But the Smart Sandiford program and its impact on the district has seen a great success over its first year. And really what it's all about is collaboration. Like you hit on the importance of industry and academia and that wealth of talent in and around Sandiford. And that really is exemplified by our work in Smart Sandiford. So we work with obviously the companies in the Sandiford district, but we also have our other partners in Dunleary-Down, who are our government or local municipality partner, and then the wider academic partners. So Enable are the lead there, and that are mainly comprised of academics in Trinity College Dublin, but we have a huge amount of academics under that Enable umbrella from around the country. UCD you mentioned, and they all work together primarily on mobility projects in Sandiford, but a huge wide range of sustainability, resilience, energy retrofit are all coming in under the program as well. And I think it's important to mention there in the bottom right, you can see the civil society and the importance of having that inclusion of the local companies, the local residents in Sandiford within everything we do. So bringing all those different partners together is really the key role of Smart Sandiford and facilitating collaboration between research in academia, the local government and their work on smarter travel in recent days and months, and indeed local business interests to facilitate the travel and people getting to work, but also business getting done in Sandiford. And I think we can talk about how business is important or academia, but what it always comes down to is having the citizen as the focus, or in this case, the employee for the Sandyford Business District. And that's reflected in our work. We have ongoing consultations prior to the formation of the Smart Sandyford program. There are actually a number of consultations in summer 2019 where the local companies and local employees were asked, what are your key challenges? And those challenges, which were primarily around mobility for Sandyford, are what we aim to address through our research or other projects with the local municipality and with the local companies. And when you look at Sandyford, and we've already hit on the great number of companies in the area, you have Vodafone, Mastercard, Microsoft, Facebook, the list goes on and on, but it's not just those big companies either. Within that small, relatively small 2 kilometre squared area, there's a huge amount of industry going on and a number of smart city projects. You can see on the top of the map there, we have the Lewis line, we have the M50 below. And working on the mobility, I think, while it's obviously, further to Sarah's point, an extremely important destination in its own right, but on the map, it's actually almost the doorway to Dublin. And that's really important from a mobility point of view and what our projects work to achieve. I've mentioned some of those bigger companies, but there are actually 1,000 companies in the district, and we work with everything from small to the larger companies on various different project types. Some of the smaller companies are able to come to us with maybe their fledgling ideas or new sensors, new research ideas that they're looking to trial, and we can roll those out across the district and then look to help those get to the next stage from going from research to actual real world practical innovation. There are also 5,000 residents in the district. We always talk about it as the business district, but more and more we're seeing a mixture of uses. A number of the new apartment blocks have businesses on the bottom floor, offices on the next couple of floors, and then residential on the top of those floors. So there's a much more of a mixed use, and I think that's reflected in some of the work we're doing in the project. And then there are also the 30,000 employees in the district. So that's a huge number of people in a relatively small geographic space. And that means we can actually trial things on that based on that density of people coming into the district each day. And that's really important from the mobility in the area, looking at the M50 again, how cars are interacting, both going into the district and passing through to commute, but also demand for other public services such as the Lewis and cycling infrastructure and that kind of thing. So we're looking at how to help those employees and really look at who these employees are. What are the demographics? I think in the wider Dún Laoghaire area, we have one of the older populations in Ireland, whereas in the district itself, we have a younger professional working population who we kind of target in terms of maybe more orientated at cycling and active travel that they might be more interested in. I mentioned we launched this year, and it was fantastic that Microsoft in Sandyford HQ was able to host us, and we got off to a really great start. But it was actually the following day that the first case of COVID hit in Ireland. So that really changed what our program of work was going to look like for the year, and had a massive impact on where our focus could be and restrain some things. But in the end, there was a bit of a silver lining in that we were able to look at things in a different way. So one of those projects was a planned e-bike trial with a company called Moby. And while that trial was supposed to go ahead in spring, we worked with Moby to use the mobility hub bikes from Dún Laoghaire Down County Council and their own e-bike fleet to provide frontline staff across local hospitals and nursing homes with a new way of travelling to work when public transport was at a reduced rate. The mobility hub in Dún Laoghaire, Rathdown, for example, has Nissan Leaf cars, e-bikes, normal pedal bikes that allow staff, maybe they don't need to take the car to work every single day. There's an option for them to travel using public transport. And then if an architect or a planner has to go out on a day trip, they can use the available travel options that are there for them. And part of what we're doing in Sandyford now is discussing with local companies the feasibility of private mobility hubs for the district, and looking at how those would work, obviously, when more employees are working in the office in a post-COVID world. Additionally, then, we had planned a number of consultations with the local companies and local employees to find out a little bit more of, again, looking at their challenges, but also our projects, the impacts they're having on their lives, and what further future projects we should be looking at. So we weren't able to do those consultations in person. So we shifted a little bit and did a webinar series trying to boost the profile of the program and showing here's some of the topics that we're looking at and maybe get in touch. And what actually happened was a lot more people got informed than we could have ever done in person. And we actually reached a wider audience and got a lot more feedback from that, which was really positive. I think while I talk about the importance of the individual, a lot of the work we do is around using data to support those people. So what that actually means or looks like is using different types of sensors around the Sandyford area to get data on everything from air quality, the transport, the congestion or lack thereof, the numbers of people cycling, energy use, you name it, there's a sensor for it. So we're looking at what sorts of sensors are needed and how we roll them out. An example of this is the We Move project that we're involved with, led by Francesco Pila and UCD. And we're looking to use citizen science, which is where we give sensors to individuals who live or work in the district, and they're able to put the sensors up in their office facing out onto the road. And they are actively involved then in the data collection of what's the level of traffic in the area. We can see the hotspots and then get in touch with the council and work with the council to solve the various road issues that there may be. We can also monitor if there's a shift in the level of traffic in the district. And as people come back from work, we'll be able to see, more people are using their bikes than before, or are they staying in their car? Are they using public transport? And all of that, this data builds up a picture that we're then able to make informed decisions based on. I think, to add another layer, we have the traffic sensors, then we have the air quality sensors as well, and we're able to see, this level of increase in the volume of cars in the district has this impact on air quality in the district, and we're able to see the level of matching there, or what the impact both of those are having. Further on the mobility side, again, we did a project with our local company Access Earth, who are looking at their goal really is to look at the accessibility of the whole of the country. But the project in Sandyford that they worked on was to look at how many wheelchair or accessible parking spots there are available, both publicly and privately. I think Ireland isn't probably known for being the most accessible place in Europe, but that's something we're looking at, and how to improve that, working with local companies like Access Earth, and then giving that data to the researchers in Enable and Trinity, who can then turn data into useful information and give it to the decision makers, which in turn impacts on the local businesses, local employees to benefit the district. This specifically in this project, the Access Earth team trained a codifier, which is a computer program that's able to analyze satellite imagery. They were using European Space Agency satellite images that photographed the entire district within a couple of minutes. And then once the codifier was trained, they were able to, within a matter of minutes, monitor and give feedback on the entire district in terms of what was available. So once you go through that training process using the satellite and the codifier, you can then apply that same technology to almost any challenge you have across a city. And so that feeds back, what the learnings from Sandyford feed back into what we're doing in terms of the wider research, but also for the local government as well. I think I've mentioned at the start the importance of stakeholder engagement. And this is our testbed process that each and every one of our projects goes through. So it's a relatively simple project funnel. And you can see we explore with companies, different individuals, plan how this can work. Then we get to the contract and MOU stage before the actual launch and the project management itself starts. So as the projects go through that, you can see at the bottom there, the stakeholder engagement piece is absolutely critical. So not only do we consult with the local business interests on the types of projects that we're selecting, we also go through that entire process with them so that they're able to give the feedback and it works for the local employees and local companies. At the end of the projects, then we can look, okay, was this a successful trial? Should we go and scale this as a successful project that can work for either all of Sandyford, all of Dún Laoghaire, or indeed the greater Dublin region? Does it need revision? Do we need to go to a phase 2 of the same project to just iron out some of those tweaks? Or, some projects just simply don't work, but there are always learnings that we can take into the next project then going forward. I think some of the, our projects to date, just with everything that's going on with COVID, might have been a little bit more academic, but we're looking going forward to have actual physical infrastructure on the ground. We're working with the NTA, TII, Dublin Bus to look at what the demands are for different services in the district. Jamie mentioned MaaS, or mobility as a service, which is where rather than having maybe a dedicated bus lane going through the district or from Bray or Tala to Sandyford, you might have on-demand, almost shuttle bus type vehicles that could bring people, say, to drop off their kids at school and then to the district, which would save them having to use their own personal car and reduce the level of private cars in the district. That's just one small example, but we're also looking at, again, working with Dún Laoghaire, that modal shift to more active travel as a priority. And that obviously has the health and environmental benefit, but also reduces the number of cars on the road. So using bikes. And I think, following our research into the different types of bike users and the demand for different bike services, it was found that you're going to have 1% of people are going to cycle, rain, hail, or shine, over hills, underwater, you name it, they'll cycle. The 9% of the top 10% will cycle pretty much no matter what, within reason. But then the following 60%, or the follower group, will only cycle if they're made feel safe, if there's the infrastructure provided and they're separated from the vehicle traffic. So we've seen that done really well across Dún Laoghaire. I think Blackrock is a really good example of where you have segregated bike lanes, and hopefully we'll see more of that coming to Sandyford in the next year. Project, we're looking at a collaboration at the moment for cyclocks, or lockers for more expensive bikes maybe, that people are investing in e-bikes or personal e-bikes. They're not looking to park these at your normal public bike stands where they could be stolen or damaged or anything. So we need to provide the infrastructure like the lockers in the image there to give those people the option so that they can cycle. And then, of course, there's the e-scooter question. So we're looking at the different types of trial that could be done within the current legislation, and how to progress legislation with the Department of Transport and the local government as well. All of these different projects require a network or connectivity in the background to support the level of data that we're talking about, traveling over different network types. We're really lucky in Sandyford in that we, as a business district, is probably one of the most connected places in the country. We are Vodafone have their headquarters there. They've rolled out a nationwide NB-IoT network. Sigfox is a nationwide IoT network. Cellnex is a local telco infrastructure provider who are rolling out a LoRa network in the district. And all of these technologies are different types of Internet of Things networks that allow these small devices, your bike, your scooter, your package as it's being delivered, to communicate and give you real-time data on what's happening in the district, that businesses or government can react and be informed so that they can make the right decisions on projects or to help people in the way that's needed. I highlighted already the different sensor types, from air quality, transport, energy monitoring, and these are all ongoing and being deployed at the moment. But if there are challenges for people in Sandyford, we'd really like to hear what's going on, what their challenges are, and how we can help roll out new sensor types. And beyond just looking at sensors and IoT, it all sounds very technical. I think it's important that for the program we have a real impact that people can visibly see as well. So it goes beyond just having a connectivity piece. You actually have to have the physical piece as well. We're working very closely. Obviously, Sandyford BID, or the Sandyford Business District, is a partner on the Smart Sandyford program. And we're working directly with them on their placemaking plan, which is really, it's gone through phase 1 now and going into phase 2 to really look at how we can work to improve the district and make it a better place, both for the employees, residents, but also for visitors as well. We have a number of hotels in the district. I think the Beacon Hospital gets something like 100,000 visitors every single year. We also have local GAA clubs. Nave Olaf have about 1,000 kids and parents coming every single weekend. So when you have that number of people coming to a district, you have to make it an area that they want to stay and visit. So that goes beyond just having a nice square like we have in the Beacon already, but also providing the key infrastructure that will allow them to travel to the district in a safe and sustainable way, such as cycling, and making it a place that they want to stay. All of this, again, will help local businesses. They'll hang around for their lunch, for a coffee, and that'll drive local business as well. So you can see how all of these plans come together for the betterment of the district as well. I've included this slide. It's actually from before my time, so I can't take credit for it. But Mastercard are partnered with Smart Dublin on the Dublin Economic Monitor, which is kind of the A grade for what we're aiming for in Smart Sandiford in terms of gathering data, but going beyond just saying, here's our data, have a look. It's actually turning data into usable information that everybody in the area, in Sandyford or indeed Dublin, can benefit from. And I think that's a hugely important piece for any sort of smart district, such as Smart Sandyford or indeed local government or research, that we make things accessible, because all of these great projects, they sound fantastic, but unless you have that collaboration and inform people of what's going on and get the interaction between those academic, local government and industry partners, you're not going to be able to benefit the end user, the individual employee or the individual citizen. And I think that's the piece we really have to aim for. And, we're working on it, but we can always do better. But I think that's everything from me at the moment. And I'm really excited to work with everybody in Smart Sandyford and Sandyford Business District. But if there are local companies who are looking to promote their own solutions or trial new things, we're always open to hearing new ideas and excited to work with people in Sandyford. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Conor Mark Dowling, Programme Manager with Smart Sandyford. You're going to stay with us, Conor. Jamie Cudden is going to rejoin us and we'll do a Q&A. But before we do that, I'd just like to introduce our moderator, Owen Laverty. Owen is Head of Enterprise and Economics, Down County Council. He has significant experience at senior level in corporate, startup, university and public sector environments. Owen Laverty currently leads a team that provides support to the startup, enterprise and economic activities in Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown. As an engineer with over 25 years experience in product development working for Philips Electronics, Magna Donnelly and Design Partners, he previously ran his own technology company specialising in bringing products to the marketplace. Owen Laverty, you're very welcome. We're delighted to have you with us this morning, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, and congratulations to everybody who's been part of Innovation Week so far. It's a great tribute to what's going on in Sandyford. And of course, I've been involved in, been conscious of Smart and Smart City project. I was at the launch, and I was thinking back, it was around 2010 with some minute researchers in Wood Quay. And at that stage, everyone was trying to figure out, well, we know it's about data. And trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do with this data? And there was an awful lot of confusion. And I think there's been there was a time when, it was basically the area where the academics had most interest, and people could see the potential. But from listening to both Conor and Jamie, and indeed being part of the group, I'm beginning to think that we're at an inflection point now where that theory and that potential now is beginning to be realized. So, I mean, to Jamie maybe, perhaps most relevant, are we at that inflection point? Are we at that point now of realization?
Yeah, absolutely. I've just written an opinion piece on that during the week, and my title of it was "Hype Turning to Reality." So, so I think that's exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, COVID as well has just accelerated the investment in Internet of Things type technologies at a pace we've never seen before. And one of the big winners, and I know we don't like to say winners out of a crisis, but one of the big winners is in the property tech sector. And I think we heard that from Mastercard. But you know, if you think about what COVID has done, it means that we need to understand how space is used, whether it's in buildings or whether it's in cities. And how do we do that? We need to invest in the right infrastructure, the right types of sensors to enable that. And by doing that, then you have access to data that helps you make better decisions to create safer spaces and places. But also you get other value benefits, which can link to energy reduction and, you know, optimization of space and cost recovery and efficiencies and all sorts of things like that. So, you know, what we've seen is that I think we've been quite lucky in Dublin that we've had a whole innovation program in this space. As you say, probably 2010 was the earliest days. It kind of has evolved a lot away from the academic and the big tech to much more accessible to smaller companies, startups, entrepreneurs. I think that's the big change, that the cost has come down, the scalability is much bigger, and with the power of the cloud, you know, we hear terms like big data, you know, the art of the possible. So many things we can do that we never could have imagined, even in the last couple of years. Some of the solutions you're seeing, well, I'm like, that wasn't possible 3 years ago. And Conor touched on some of the connectivity networks that have enabled these things to be connected in a way that, you know, was unimaginable 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the earliest realizations of Smart in Dublin, and you have to give Dublin Bus the credit for telling you when your next bus is arriving, and that was at each bus stop. And then obviously, you know, parking, how many spaces are in a parking lot, and directing people towards those. Very early stage innovations, but very meaningful and practical. And I guess when, you know, we've been at Smart Cities together, Jamie, and, you know, I remember looking at the Huawei stand and seeing a screen, I don't know, it was the size of maybe, I guess, a tennis court, and it tells you exactly when someone dropped a bit of litter, when a gully needed sorting out, when a light went out. I mean, it was the stuff of the future. And indeed, in China, they have been building smart cities from the ground up. And so they started with that mentality and that design kind of strategy. So in terms of retrofitting cities, and you talked about the district approach and trialing things out in a micro space, what are the big challenges around the retrofitting piece, and that make us, that I guess we talked about legislation as well, but to make this really happen, what are those challenges and what needs to happen so we can fully embrace this and fully realize its potential as citizens and as businesses?
Yeah, I mean, have you got a couple of hours? I mean, it's retrofitting is the reality of most cities. And I think, you know, we think some of the big challenges, you know, legacy systems. So a system that's been in place that doesn't allow you to connect other things or pull data off, that's a big challenge. Procurement life cycles as well, where, you know, departments have procured a system and it's got a lifespan and it's difficult to connect with another system. You know, that proprietary nature of technology is kind of old school. The new is things need to be able to connect with each other and they need to be open and interoperable. So that's something that's kind of changing through time. I mean, I think, you know, the silos are probably the biggest challenge, mindsets and culture. It's probably shifting, that it's less about the technology but more about people, mindsets, and breaking out of silos. And I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. Maybe a good example would be like a streetlight column. The streetlight column provides obviously a function to kind of, light the city at night, keep people safe. And, they've been a kind of a staple piece of infrastructure in cities for hundreds of years. Now, all of a sudden, if you think outside of the person who manages the streetlight, what other things can you leverage off that streetlight, whether it's sensors that, monitor the environment, whether it's cameras that optimize traffic flows, whether it's charging infrastructure for electric cars, or even, connectivity technology, whether it's supporting mobile deployments and things like that. So, if you have that conversation and you're the asset owner and your focus is on, the LED and the lighting, you're not going to be too interested in all these other potential uses of that asset. And I think that's the big barrier busters in terms of breaking down those silos and thinking about all this stuff in a kind of a corporate mindset, in terms of this is for the benefit of the city, it's for the benefit of the citizen. How can we optimize that? And I think that's just one example, but it's the same is true for pretty much all the assets we see in our city. And I think just breaking out that mindset, having a bit of ambition, and kind of thinking about things differently is really what the key ingredient will be for the future of the cities that are successful in this space, the cities that want to be competitive economically, and the cities that want to be efficient as well and deliver great services for citizens.
Okay. If I may ask, put a question to you both. There's been huge progress, I suppose, in the last number of years and months in transportation technology. As a nation, as a people, are we slow at adopting new forms and modes of transport? Is there a lot of red tape that we need to jump through? What changes do we need? You take e-scooters, for example. They seem to be, a great form of transport, but there's these blockers. What are the blockers, and how do we get past it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at what's happened in the UK, and often on a few different areas we might follow the UK in terms of policy, they've only just in the last month allowed for e-scooter trials. And so there's a local startup, Zip, in UCD, who are an e-scooter company, and they're running now 5 trials with different councils across the UK. So at the moment, I think it's fair to say e-scooters operate in a bit of a grey area in Ireland. So it's almost at the discretion of a guard if they're going to take the e-scooter off the individual or not. So there could be scope there. We would need new legislation to push through, but for maybe a trial area for e-scooters, for example. And that would be a way of progressing it. At the moment, you are allowed trial on private grounds. So there are trials that have been done in DCU, and there's new trials now going ahead in UCD. But to use public roads, I think it's really important that you'd have to have the safe infrastructure in place before any trial could take place to ensure the safety of the user. There's an issue with e-scooters, while they are great, that they move differently to bikes. So the argument from an e-scooter perspective is that, well, you're allowed to have an e-bike, why aren't you allowed to have an e-scooter? And it's that, well, an e-bike still moves in the same way in terms of turning around a corner as a normal bike, and a driver or a truck knows what to expect to a certain degree. Whereas on an e-scooter, they have rapid acceleration that is at this stage a little bit unpredictable. So you'd need a trial to first get people used to that kind of movement. And then, there's also the worry as well, if we're looking and talking about sustainability, and you're looking at active travel as your primary objective, are you just going to have cyclists moving onto e-scooters, and then you're undercutting your own objectives? Or are you going to have cars moving onto e-scooters? So there's a little bit of research needed before we get to that stage, I'd say, of progressing with trials even in Ireland.
Yeah, maybe Conor, I'll pick up on your question. I think when we use transport in Dublin, think of it from a user perspective. If you're a tourist and you arrive in Dublin Airport, firstly, is it an easy to understand system? I mean, how do you go about getting from the airport to the city centre? What's the interaction between the bus, the Lewis, and what are these bikes that are dotted around the city, whether they're bleeper bikes or Moby bikes? It's very confusing. And I think, the big challenge for cities around the world is, and I talk about silos, so you could actually put all these different buckets of silos. So you have your public transport operator is one silo, which is probably the bus and the Lewis and the Dart. Then you've got like these new options like the Go cars, the Toyota Yukkos, the bleeper bikes, the Moby bikes, which all require a separate app. I don't even know where to get that app. I have to register my credit card on that, or put some way of putting money on that. And then you've got the potential of e-scooters. Then you've got, which has been a phenomenal success, the Free Now guys. The whole taxi industry has been revolutionized. So you kind of think about it, why do I have to have like 10 apps? And if you think about even one of the public transit one, I can't even pay with my phone. I have to have the separate card, and then I have to top that up separately. And so you just kind of get this, you get the gist of it. Like, this isn't unusual in cities around the world. It's quite common. So you kind of think about, what am I used to? I'm used to, since COVID-19, I'm used to kind of maybe using Revolut or having everything on my phone and going contactless. And isn't it so amazing how you can do that and how quickly we embrace that? So what is it that needs to happen in transport to optimize all these assets that people just can't use because it's so damn confusing? It doesn't make any sense, really. It's like it's like we're back in the dark ages. So I think there's certainly a lot of work needs to happen. And listen, I know the National Transport Agency are progressing. There's tenders in place for account-based ticketing, and people want to move in that direction. But it's so slow because and I talked about at the start, the proprietary systems, the silos, the procurement timelines. And who suffers at the end? It's people don't use the transport as efficiently as they should. The environment suffers, and the experience isn't as good as it should be. So who's going to sort all that out and make it happen quicker is my question.
And Jamie, so you're touching on the user, and I think we always have to be conscious of the user with technology, don't we? And having that seamless experience. But I think that's going to be a challenge with the IoT world, where your fridge is talking to your toaster, etc., and having the one operating system for all of those things, so you don't have to go have a PhD in software development to try and make your house work the way it used to work. And that is a big challenge, of course. And so you have, from a municipality perspective, I guess I know about the SBIR, and the SBIR is a great opportunity for technology companies to come in, trial get funded to trial their innovation with the various councils, Dublin councils, and then get rolled out into the council. So that is one example, I guess, of a kind of a unified approach towards adopting technology in the various councils. So that's, do you want to talk a little bit about SBIR and the opportunities it creates to companies to get involved and to get a test bed for their technologies and potential clients, of course?
Absolutely. And I think, while I talk about smart cities, and I think about great services for citizens and better outcomes for citizens. I think that's really, really important. But also remembering that, if you can solve some of these big challenges in our cities, whether it's waste or mobility, there's thousands of cities around the world that are all grappling with the same issues. So I think our mantra from the start, from Smart Dublin, Smart City, is that, a proactive local authority, or for local authorities across Dublin, to make available access to assets or space in cities that will have a massive kick-on effect, not only for the company, that they can move faster to innovate and hopefully scale, but also change mindsets, that when you start seeing these solutions, that they actually are real. They're not something I've seen in a science fiction video or manual. It cuts across so many different areas of what we need to do. And I think Enterprise Ireland have been visionary in terms of providing funding support, and obviously the local authorities matching that. But it's created opportunities in a number of areas for Dublin City Council, where one project, we were looking at, the gullies or the drains in the city, in high risk flood areas, when they get blocked and they overflow, it creates potential damage in areas across the city. So what if we could put in, this is the idea, 3-4 years ago, what if we could put a low cost sensor in there that alerts our gully crew to, target the areas that need targeting quicker to reduce the risk. And we've ended up working with 2 fantastic companies that are now in the process of commercializing these products. They built, designed, manufactured this in partnership with our gully manager, and his team, to solve a problem in Dublin. That's a scalable solution, and each of those companies now are taking on opportunities around the world on the back of working with us in Dublin City Council. And there's a whole wave. We've launched 12 challenges, 45 companies, €1.5 million funding. There's a whole wave of companies that are doing that type of stuff in partnership with Dublin's local authorities. And I think, isn't that exciting that the innovation is happening here, it's been deployed here, and it's creating opportunities for these companies. But not only that, it's creating a safer city, it's creating better services for Dubliners, and it's technology that didn't exist 5 years ago, or as you say, it was something that was, the university guys were researching back in 2010. And we have a whole wave of examples of this type of work. And a really exciting one that we're working on at the moment is a kind of an innovation pilot looking at connected life buoys. So life buoys, unfortunately, tend to be a target of stag parties and people returning from the pub. They get kind of thrown in the river, they end up in hotel bedrooms. But obviously, if the life buoy is not there, a potential life can be at risk, if there's a drowning incident. So we've put out to the market this idea where low cost connected sensor could tell you when it's there, when it's removed, and it can be replaced quickly. And we're working with a couple of companies, piloting this. It's unreal, like stuff I'd never thought I'd see possible happening in Dublin. And they're all Irish companies. They're Dublin based, most of them, and the innovation and the talent, what we heard in the session before, is just is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I know. Sorry, go on, Conor.
Sorry, just to add to that as well, in terms of Dún Laoghaire, I think the IoT SBIR, which is looking at the Internet of Things and how the council can actually connect devices onto its own network, is really coming along. It's gone into stage 2. So we're going to be testing the devices as part of stage 2 on that network in Sandiford. So again, it's helping small companies, but actually giving benefit back to the local area that the districts operate in as well.
Great. And can I just finish off with one more very broad question around the car and the future of the car, since we're on the topic of mobility. So I know, obviously, in DLR now there's a huge amount of cycle lanes, and I guess the priorities are pedestrian, bike, public transport, and then car. So car is very much the fourth citizen at the moment. And I'm just wondering, with the autonomous vehicles coming on, the state of play with autonomous vehicles, there is a vision, I guess, that we won't own a car. The cars will be out somewhere outside of Dublin, and you'll order them, and they'll fill the city as needed. And that's a quite exciting vision, especially for someone who's got very restricted parking in front of their house. I love that vision. How far away do you think are we from that? And how do you think that's going to affect the status of the car in all of this? It's a very broad question, but if you can give it a stab.
Yeah, I'll give it a go anyway. I think the connected car, there was a huge buzz, hype, that hasn't really materialized as fast, I think, as people thought. I think there's the ethics, there's the regulatory piece, and I think it's slightly different in the US, just in terms of the configuration of the roads, more kind of designed towards the car versus, cities like Dublin or European cities that are, heritage cities with very unusual configurations. Maybe that's an understatement. But I do smile actually when I see some of the BMWs or some of their vision maybe 2-3 years ago in terms of the connected car, and it was a luxury car, and you'd literally, you'd be lying back, doing your work and listening to Spotify and looking at what's next on your next Netflix playlist. I remember thinking, like, it doesn't really matter what happens in that car. There's only so much road space in cities, and the car is not, it's not a priority in the pyramid. So absolutely, Owen, I think it's about optimizing a shared fleet of cars. I think we need to scale up shared mobility and figure out how we can support the likes of the Go cars and the shared bikes to be at a scale that, it just makes so much sense for me to use those services. And I do always think there's going to be this dilemma between, the battle for space, for curbside, and it has to be the most sustainable solution that wins out. We're all about reducing our carbon emissions, and we want to have quality public spaces in our cities. So I think that's going to play out quite interestingly over the next couple of years. But certainly, maybe the fully autonomous car maybe is a bit more far out than, especially in cities like Dublin, than we might have thought a few years ago.
Okay, I'd like to thank all our contributors today. Jamie Cudden, Smart City Programme Manager, Dublin City Council. Sarah Cunningham, Vice President, Mastercard, Dublin Techhub. Conor Mark Dowling, Programme Manager, Smart Sandiford. And Owen Laverty, Head of Enterprise and Economics, Dunleary Rathdown County Council. There's been some great insights throughout this morning's session, and looking forward to seeing them come to fruition in Sandyford Business District over the next coming months and years. I'd also like to thank UCD for hosting the event and Creative Technology for providing the audio, video and broadcasting. Next up this afternoon.